The jungle planet of Yelvara was full of mystery and danger. Giant red-leafed trees covered the land, and glowing rivers ran through the forest. The planet was home to the Yelvaran Empire, ruled by a powerful alien queen named Syraxia. She was a Z, tall, graceful, with silver skin and golden eyes that made even the bravest warriors feel nervous. No one knew her true name. It was tradition when a Yelvaran princess became queen. Her real name was erased. She chose a throne name, and no one dared ask for the name she was born with. It was a sacred secret, locked away forever. The humans didn't understand all their customs, but they knew enough to stay careful. Earth had fought a short, violent border war with Yelvara. Many died on both sides. Now both governments wanted peace. Human delegation was sent to the Queen's palace to begin talks. Among them was a young officer named Lieutenant Jason Reed. Jason wasn't a diplomat. He was a soldier, trained in engineering and survival. He was only part of the team because his ship had crash-landed near a Yelvaran village during the war. And he saved several alien children from a burning house before being captured. Instead of being punished, the Yelvaran Council praised him. Queen Syraxia herself had him released. Now months later, he walked through the golden halls of her palace, dressed in formal black uniform. He felt out of place. The alien walls hummed softly. The air smelled like spices and flowers. Tall alien guards watched him with curious eyes. He whispered to himself, "Definitely not Earth." The Queen's banquet hall was massive. Light floated. Above the ceiling like little stars, alien nobles sat around a long crystal table. Human officials sat stiffly at one end. Queen Syraxia sat on a raised throne, watching everyone with a calm smile. Then her eyes landed on Jason. He bowed slightly. She raised an eyebrow. "Lieutenant Reed," she said, her voice rich and smooth. "You're the human who ran into a burning building to save my people." Jason shrugged. Oh, they were kids. "Fire doesn't care who you are." A few aliens chuckled softly. The Queen tilted her head. "You're bold. I like that." He smiled. "I've been called worse." The Queen leaned forward, her gold eyes shining. "Tell me, human, do your people still believe in riddles? Games? Of words?" Jason blinked. "Sometimes. Depends on the stakes." She smiled wider. "Then here's one for you. Guess my real name, and I will marry you." The entire hall went silent. The human diplomats looked horrified. The alien nobles stared. In shock, Jason froze, unsure if she was joking or serious. The Queen laughed. "Relax, everyone. I am only teasing. I doubt even your best minds could discover such a secret." Jason raised an eyebrow. "A name's just a name, right?" Her smile faded slightly. "No, not here. A name is power. The one who speaks it holds part of our soul." Jason sat straighter. "And what happens if I guess right?" She narrowed her eyes. "Then the binding law takes effect. I will be yours, a queen bound by truth." He chuckled. "And if I'm wrong, then nothing. You walk away, and we share a drink? No harm." Jason looked around. Everyone stared at him. He smiled at the Queen and said, "All right. I'll play your game." Gasps echoed through the hall. Syraxia blinked. "You accept?" He nodded. "Why not? You only live once." She leaned back in her throne, studying him. "Then begin your search, Lieutenant Reed. You'll find Yelvara doesn't give up its secrets easily." Later that night, Jason returned to his guest room. It was a smooth dome of warm stone, filled with soft lights and strange floating furniture. Lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. "That was stupid," he muttered. She was joking, but part of him didn't believe it. Her eyes hadn't looked like she was joking, or something deeper behind that smile. A challenge, maybe even a warning. As he drifted to sleep, he heard something. A whisper. A soft voice, like wind through trees. It said a name, a strange sound that didn't belong to any language he knew. "Sir, a ... Jason's eyes opened. He sat up, sweating. What the hell was that? He repeated the name out loud. Felt ... right. Familiar, like he had always known it deep in his bones. He wrote it down on his datapad and stared at it. Syria. He whispered again. Could that really be her name? The next morning, Jason joined the diplomatic team in the library chamber, a massive hall filled with floating books and glowing crystals. He searched for records of the Queen's past, anything that mentioned her childhood, her family, anything before she became Syraxia. But the records were empty. All the files began on the day she took the throne. Before that dash, nothing, Jason found. An old alien historian named Kellen, a scholar with long fingers and 3 glowing eyes. You search for shadows, human, Kellen said. The Queen's name is not written anywhere, not even in thought. Jason leaned in. But someone must. Remember? Maybe her parents? Teachers? Kellen shook his head. They are all gone. Tradition demands her name be forgotten. It was burned in ritual fire. Jason frowned. What if I told you? I heard a name last night. In a dream, Kellen stared at him. A name. What name? Jason hesitated, then whispered Syria. Alien scholar went silent. That name, Kellen said softly, has not been spoken in 1,000 cycles. Jason felt a chill. So it is real? Kellen nodded slowly. If the name came to you? Then something ancient has awakened. Jason looked toward the palace windows. What happens if I speak it to her? Kellen's voice was grave. She will have no choice. The law is clear. A name spoken by an outsider binds her to him. Right. Jason leaned back. And if she doesn't want to be bound, then she must silence you, Kellen said. Permanently. Jason laughed nervously. Great. So it's either wedding bells, ... or death. Kellen looked at him with all 3 eyes. You carry something strange inside you, human. A light not born of this world. Be careful. That evening, a formal dinner was held. Jason walked through the palace halls with the name burning in his mind, Sarai. When he entered the banquet, Room Queen Syraxia was already waiting, dressed in a robe of shifting colors. Her eyes met his. Have you come to make a guess? She asked with a calm smile. Jason smiled back. Not yet, just enjoying the food. She walked beside him, whispering, If you take my challenge seriously. He looked into her eyes. Maybe. I'm not like the others. For a moment, something flickered across her face, something unsure. Something afraid. Then she smiled again and turned away. That night, Jason stood on his balcony. The alien moon hung heavy in the sky. He clenched his fist. I need to know the truth, he said. If this name is real, I have to find out. For her, for me. And far away, in her private chamber, Queen Syraxia stood alone, staring into a mirror. She whispered to herself, Syria. I haven't heard that name in so long. She touched her chest. Her heart beat faster. And for the first time in many years, the Queen felt something strange fear. Lieutenant Jason Reed woke early. The jungle outside his guest chamber buzzed with life. Strange birds sang from the trees. A pale green mist floated across the ground. The palace was quiet, but Jason's mind was full of noise. One word repeated in his head. Syria, he said it again, just to feel the sound. It was soft, elegant. It didn't sound like most alien words. It felt personal. He dressed quickly and returned to the royal library. The floating lights above the bookshelves flickered softly. Alien scholars moved between crystal tables, reading old scrolls and scanning memory stones. Jason searched for hours reading about Yelveron queens, ancient traditions, and the ceremony where a royal name is erased. Every queen before Syraxia had done the same, burning her birth name in ritual flame. But something was different about Syraxia. There was no record of her family, no early life, no mention of a childhood name. It was like her past had been cut out of history. He found Kellen. It's the old 3-eyed scholar from the day before. You again, Kellen said. Still chasing a forbidden truth? Jason nodded. I have to know if this name is real. Kellen sighed. You humans don't know when to stop. Curiosity is your strength and your weaknesses. Jason smiled. Yeah, that's what my instructors used to say. The old alien led him to a quiet part of the library, an older chamber filled with dusty tablets and forgotten artifacts. He pulled a glowing cube from a shelf and placed it on the table. "This is from the Temple of Names," Kellen said. "Destroyed a century ago." Jason watched the cube light up. 3D image floated above a tan ancient carving of a young girl with a crown of leaves. Symbols danced around her image. "What is this?" Jason asked. Kellen pointed to a faint symbol on the bottom. "That's a birth sigil. Each Yelveron child has one, like your human fingerprints." Jason leaned closer. The sigil was damaged, partly burned, but a few marks were still clear. He tapped his datapad and began comparing it to records of current royals. One matched Queen Syraxia. "This was her," Jason said quietly. "Before she was queen," Kellen nodded. "That's what I feared. Somehow, you found a path that was meant to be buried forever." Jason stared at the name under the sigil. It was faint, but still readable, Sarai. The same name from his dream. Kellen looked nervous. "If you speak that name aloud in her presence, it will bind her soul. She cannot refuse the old law." Jason shook his head. "Why would she joke about it then?" Kellen looked him straight in the eyes. "Because she didn't think anyone would ever find it. You're a human, a stranger. She underestimated you." Jason stood up. "Then maybe it's time she saw what humans are made of." That evening, a royal event was held in the garden courts. Dozens of alien guests gathered under the glowing trees. Colorful birds flew above the fountains. Music played from crystal instruments, and soft blue fire danced in the air. Jason arrived in his formal black uniform again. He scanned the crowd. He didn't care about the music or the food or the nobles. He was looking for her. Queen Syraxia entered shortly after, wearing a long robe of shimmering silver. Her hair was woven with glowing threads. She walked past, the crowd bowed. But Jason didn't bow. He walked toward her, calm and steady. Syraxia noticed him. Her smile returned. "Ah, the brave human returns. Still chasing names?" Jason nodded. "I found one." The queen paused. Her golden eyes narrowed. "Is that so?" Jason stepped closer, keeping his voice low. "Why would someone erase every part of themselves, even their name?" She looked away. "Because sometimes the past is too heavy to carry," Jason said softly. "Or maybe someone feared what would happen if they remembered." Syraxia turned back to him. Her voice was colder now. "Be careful, Lieutenant. You play with fire." Jason smiled slightly. "I don't mind the heat." For a moment, their eyes locked. The music faded around them. Alien nobles watched silently, sensing tension in the air. Then the queen turned and walked toward the garden path. Jason followed. They stopped near a quiet fountain, away from the crowd. Syraxia spoke first. "You found something, didn't you?" Jason nodded. "A sigil from the Temple of Names." She stared at the water. "It should have been destroyed." "I guess it wasn't," Jason said. "And it had your name on it." The queen closed her eyes. "Then you know. Say it, and the ancient law binds us." Jason took a deep breath. "Do you want me to say it?" Silence. The queen turned to him. "Do you want me to be bound?" Jason didn't answer right away. "I want to understand. I make a joke about something so serious. Because I didn't think anyone would take me seriously," she said quietly. "And maybe, I hoped no one ever would." Jason stepped closer. "You don't want to be bound, but you also don't want to be forgotten. That's why the name still lives in your heart." She looked at him, her golden eyes full of emotion. "You speak like someone who's known me for years," Jason said. "Maybe I do. Maybe the stars told me your name for a reason," she whispered. "Then don't speak it." "Not yet." Jason nodded. "All right, I'll wait." They stood in silence for a while. Finally, she said, "Come with me. There's something you should see." She led him deep into the palace, past guards and locked doors, down into the old lower levels. They reached a chamber made of black stone. Inside, floating lights circled a tall mirror shimmering with soft blue light. "This is the mirror of memory," she said. "Shows only the truth." Jason stared at it. "Sounds dangerous." She stepped in front of it. Her reflection changed, showing her as a young girl with wide eyes and a simple dress. "That was me," she said. Before the crown. Before the war. I was Syria then. Jason watched her face. Her voice trembled slightly. My father was assassinated. I had to take the throne when I was barely old enough. They told me to burn my name, to become someone else strong, unbreakable. She turned to him. But inside, I'm still her, still Saria, Jason said softly. Then why hide it? Because if the court knew I still clung to the past, they'd see it as weakness, she whispered. Yelvara respects power, not memory. Jason took her hand. She didn't pull away. You don't need to carry that weight alone, he said. We're not enemies anymore. She looked at him, truly looked at him. I don't understand you humans, she said. You have short lives, yet you burn brighter than most who live 1,000 years. Jason smiled. That's how we survive. One fire at a time. That night, Jason returned to his room. He stood on his balcony, staring at the stars. His datapad still had the name written, Saria. He didn't say it out loud. Not yet, but he knew the time was coming. He was no longer chasing a game or a joke. This was real now. There was a soul behind the crown, a woman who had hidden her name, her pain, and her heart. And somehow, the stars had chosen him to uncover it. Far away, in her private chamber, Queen Syraxia sat alone. She touched the old sigil Jason had uncovered. Her fingers trembled. For so long, she whispered, I thought no one would ever remember me. She looked toward the stars and closed her eyes. But he did. Jason Reed walked through the quiet halls of the palace, his boots making soft echoes on the smooth stone. The air felt heavier today. Something had changed. Everyone could feel it. The queen hadn't spoken to him since the night in the memory chamber, but he still remembered every word she had said. Inside, I'm still her. Still Saria. The name felt heavier now. Not just a sound, not just a secret. It was a connection between two souls, hers and his Jason stared at the datapad in his hand. Her sigil, the name, the mirror. All the pieces were coming together. He just didn't know what it meant yet in the council chamber. Voices rose in argument. Yelvaron nobles stood around the glowing table, speaking in sharp tones. Holograms floated above the table maps, names. Images of human ships near the Yelvaron border. They grow bolder, hissed one noble. We give them peace, and they bring weapons. They're explorers, not invaders, another replied. Jason stood in the back, watching. Then Queen Syraxia entered. The room fell silent. She looked calm, but Jason saw the tightness in her jaw. Her eyes flicked toward him for a moment, then returned to the nobles. I will speak, she said. Everyone listened. We are not at war, she said clearly. We are building a new future, but that future depends on trust, and trust requires courage, the nobles murmured, unsure. One of them, Lord Varric, stepped forward. He was tall, with silver horns and sharp eyes. Your Majesty, he said, this human Lieutenant Reed walks freely in our halls. Rumors spread. Some say he dares to speak your sacred name. The room tensed. All eyes turned to Jason. Jason didn't flinch. The Queen's voice stayed calm. And what if he does? Varric stiffened. Then by the old law, you are bound to him. The Queen walked toward the center. The old law is not a weapon. It is a bond of truth. And truth is not weakness. Jason saw her hand shaking just a little. I will decide my path, she said. Not fear, not tradition. Varric's voice turned cold. If you let a human speak the Queen's name, you break the sacred barrier between our world and theirs. Jason stepped forward. I didn't come here to break anything, he said. I came because I heard her name. In a dream, in the ruins. In my heart. I didn't ask for this. The nobles glared at him. Queen Syraxia raised her hand. Enough. She turned to Jason. Come walk with me. Sighed in the garden. The Queen's footsteps were silent. Jason followed. You shouldn't have spoken, she said quietly. I didn't plan to, Jason replied. But they're already against me, no matter what I say. She stopped near a tree with glowing blue leaves. "They're afraid," she said. "Afraid of change. Afraid of humans. Afraid of me." Jason watched her closely. "And you?" She didn't answer. He reached out and gently touched her arm. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to take anything from you." She looked at him. "Then why are you here?" Jason said softly. "Because something brought me to your world. Something led me to your name. Maybe fate. Maybe something else. But I know I'm not walking away." The Queen's eyes glowed in the moonlight. "You still want to say it?" Jason nodded. "But not to claim you, to free you." Her lips parted slightly, but no words came. Then she turned and walked away. The next day, Jason left the palace with the Queen's quiet permission. He took a transport and traveled to the ruins of Zeltana, deep in the jungle. It was the last place where Yelveron royals lived before the palace was built. Kellen, the old scholar, came with him. "This place is cursed," Kellen said as they entered the broken gates. "The ground remembers pain." Vines covered ancient statues. Stone towers leaned to one side. The air was thick and warm. They found an old chamber beneath the ruins. Jason pushed aside a fallen beam and uncovered a stone door with ancient carvings. At the center of the door was a symbol, the Queen's birth sigil. Kellen read the words around it. "Here sleeps the name of Saria. May it never rise again." Jason touched the sigil. The stone door slid open with a groan. Inside was a small room, a shrine, an old mirror. And in the center an orb glowing with soft white light. Jason stepped closer. The orb whispered, "Sarai." Jason's breath caught. "She gave her name to this place," Kellen whispered. "But it still lives. It waits for someone to speak it with truth." Jason looked at the orb. "Then I will." He placed his hand on the stone. "Syria." Oh. The orb flared with light. Images flashed in his mind, her as a child running through the garden. Her crying at her father's funeral, her standing before the fire, throwing her name into the flames. Then the image shifted, Saraxia, standing before him, her eyes full of pain. The vision ended. Kellen helped Jason stand. He was shaking. "You've seen her soul," Kellen said. "You know what she lost." Jason nodded. "I also know what she still is." Back at the palace, news spread quickly. Jason had entered the shrine of the forgotten name. Some nobles demanded his arrest. Others wanted him banished, but the Queen summoned everyone to the Hall of Stars. Nobles, diplomats, warriors, humans, aliens. Jason stood at the front. Queen Saraxia entered last. She wore her royal robes. Her face was calm, but her hands were clenched. She stood beside Jason and looked at the crowd. "Many of you fear the past," she said. "You fear change? You fear names?" She looked at Jason. "And yet this human did what none of you dared." He walked into the ruins. He faced my truth. She turned to him. "You found my name, didn't you?" Jason nodded. The hall was silent. She took a deep breath. "Then say it." Jason stepped forward. He didn't shout. He didn't tremble. He just said the name softly. "Syria." The hall gasped. The Queen closed her eyes. Light glowed around her. The ancient binding rite had been triggered. Power swirled in the air. Jason felt a strange pull in his chest, like energy connecting him to her. The Queen opened her eyes. Golden light swirled around. Her fingers, she took Jason's hand. "I made a joke once," she said. "I said I would marry the human who guessed my true name. I thought no one would. I thought it was safe." She turned to the crowd. "But this man didn't just guess. He found it. He felt it. He knew it. That means something." The binding light faded. The Queen stood straight. "I will not deny the bond. I will honor it." Gasps spread through the hall. Jason stared at her. "You don't have to." She looked at him with a gentle smile. "I want to." After the ceremony, they stood alone in her chamber. Jason still couldn't believe it. "You don't seem afraid anymore," he said. "I'm still afraid," she whispered. "But now I'm not alone." Jason touched her hand. You never were. She looked into his eyes. I am Saria, and now, the whole world knows. The palace was no longer quiet, since Jason Reed had spoken Queen Syraxia's true name in front of the royal court. Everything had changed. The ancient binding rite had been triggered. Now, by the laws of Yelvara, the queen was soul-bound to a human. To Jason, some aliens saw it as fate. Others saw it as shame. Outside the palace walls, crowds gathered, some cheering, others angry. Inside, nobles argued day and night. The queen's private advisors warned her of rebellion. Warships moved along the skies. Danger was growing fast, but the queen stayed calm. She wore no crown that morning, no robe of power. It's just a simple dark dress as she stood on the palace balcony, looking over her city. Jason joined her. He stood beside her, silent at first. Finally, he spoke. Sure you're okay? She gave a small smile. I just caused the biggest political storm in centuries. Of course I'm not okay. Jason smirked. At least you're honest. Stood together, watching the city below. You said the binding law would change everything, Jason said. I didn't expect it would be this bad. It's not the bond that scares them, she replied. It's what it means. And what does it mean? He asked. The queen turned to face him. That I made a choice, not out of tradition, not out of duty, but from my heart. Jason's chest tightened. She rarely spoke so openly. Before he could answer, a guard rushed toward them. Your Majesty Lord Varric has called an emergency council meeting. He demands the bond be broken. Syraxia's eyes narrowed. He can demand whatever he wants. I will answer him myself. The council hall was full of tension. Alien nobles stood in rows. The mood was darker than before. Some faces were angry. Others were afraid. Some just confused. Lord Varric stood in the center, his voice loud and sharp. Your Majesty, he said, you have broken sacred order. You have let a human speak your name. The throne is not yours to gamble away. Jason stood beside Syraxia, hands behind his back. He didn't speak yet. The queen answered calmly. The law is clear. A name spoken in truth forms a binding. I did not resist. The bond stands. Varric slammed his hand on the table, and I challenge your rule. I call for the trial of the throne. Gasps filled the room. Jason leaned in and whispered, What's that? She whispered back. A political battle? A public test of leadership? If I fail it, I must step down as queen? Jason frowned. He wants to take your throne? No, she said. He wants to destroy me for breaking tradition. Jason's hands clenched. The queen lifted her head. Very well, I accept the challenge. That night, Syraxia prepared for the trial. The palace guards were doubled. Jason stayed close. He could feel the tension growing everywhere as she sat in her private chamber reading old records. Jason brought her a hot drink. You need sleep, he said gently. I need victory, she replied. They'll test me in every way, my mind, my strength, my loyalty to our people. Jason sat across from her. And if you lose, she looked at him. Then I'll be forced to step down, and the bond will be cut by force. Jason leaned forward. No, I won't let that happen. Her eyes softened. You don't get to fight this one, Jason. He took her hand. Then I'll do what I can. There was a pause. Then she whispered, I've lived behind a mask for so long. Being queen, being strong, being silent. But you, you saw me. The real me. Saria, Jason said, and I'll fight for her. Not the crown, not the throne. Just her. For a moment, everything else disappeared. The next day, the trial of the throne began. It was held in the ancient arena of truth, an old structure carved into the heart of the jungle, surrounded by vines and statues of old rulers. Thousands gathered. Nobles, citizens, diplomats, even humans from the earth. Delegation watched from a side platform. Jason stood at the edge of the arena, his eyes locked on Syraxia. 3 challenges awaited her. The first challenge, the test of wisdom. A group of judges. asked her deep questions about law, war, peace, and the future of the empire. Siraxia stood tall, answering each one with calm, clever replies. She spoke of peace, of strength, of adapting with honor. She did not back down from hard truths. Jason watched the judges nod. Her words had weight. She wasn't just a queen, she was a leader. The second challenge, the test of spirit, here. The queen had to face her own fears. A vision stone was placed before her. As she touched it, her deepest pain was shown to all her childhood, her father's. Death, the night she burned her own name. The crowd saw it. Some wept. Sarah Xia did not look away. She stood in front of her past and said, "Yes, that was me. I carry it still, but I do not run from it." Jason's throat tightened. He had never admired her more. The final challenge, the test of loyalty. Here, a cruel choice was presented. The judges gave her a small dagger and showed her Jason's image. They asked, "Would you cut the bond to save the Empire's honor? Or keep the bond and risk civil war?" The crowd waited, holding their breath. Siraxia looked down at the dagger. Her hands trembled. Then she dropped it. "I will not cut what was made in truth," she said. "If I must lose my throne to protect something real, ... then so be it." Silence, then slowly applause began. One noble clapped, then another, then the crowd. The judges stood. They declared, "The queen has passed. She remains ruler. The bond remains sacred." After the trial, back in the palace, Jason sat with her in the garden under the moonlight. "You did it," he said quietly. She nodded barely. He chuckled. "You know, I've seen battles. I've fought pirates, crashed on enemy planets, and once fixed a ship engine during a meteor storm." He looked at her, but today, ... I saw the bravest thing I've ever seen. Siraxia looked down, then reached for his hand. "I don't know what comes next," she said. "Some still hate the bond. Some still fear humans. But I won't let them undo this." Jason squeezed her hand. "Neither will I." She looked into his eyes. "For years I believed a name was something to burn and forget. But now, ... it feels like a seed. Something that can grow." Jason smiled. "Grow something together." She leaned forward and kissed him softly on the forehead. "You really are strange, human, and you're really something, queen." She smiled. "Call me Saria," she said. And for the first time, Yadian said it aloud, not in fear, not in secret, not as part of a ritual, but with warmth. "Saria." A week had passed since Queen Siraxian. Now Saria won the trial of the throne. The palace had settled into a strange peace. Nobles still whispered in corners. Soldiers patrolled more than usual. And though the bond with Jason had been accepted by law, not everyone was truly at peace with it. But Syria stayed strong, and Jason stayed by her side. Each morning they walked through the royal gardens. Jason would tease her about how serious she looked. She would roll her eyes at how casually he treated royalty. But under all the jokes and teasing, something real was growing. One morning, Saria paused by a glowing flower and turned to Jason. "They still fear you." Jason shrugged. "I've seen fear before. This is different. They're not scared of me. They're scared of what we mean together." Saria looked down. A human and a queen. "Two worlds," Jason smiled. "Then, let's show them what two worlds can do." But peace never lasts long. That evening, the palace received a signal urgent, coded. Military grade. A Yelveran outpost had been attacked. The attackers left no trace, but the wounds on the guards were clear blades made from dark plasma. One group used those weapons. The Shadow Faction. Exiled for their violence and hatred toward humans. This secretive group had waited for a reason to strike. Now, with a human bonded to their queen, they had it. A message was broadcast from an unknown source. "The throne is infected. Cut the bond or face the blade." The nobles panicked. Some called for Jason's removal. Others suggested Saria step back from power until things cooled. But the queen stood tall. "They threaten us because they are afraid. I will not bend to cowards hiding in the dark." Jason stood beside her. Then let's bring them into the light. That night, Syria and Jason prepared for battle. Not one of swords or guns, but of minds and hearts. Syria gave a speech across the Empire's network. Her face appeared on every screen, every wall, every ship. They say I am unfit to rule because I bonded with a human. They say I broke tradition. But I said tradition must not become a cage. I chose this bond. I chose truth. And if that truth brings war, then I will fight. Not alone, but with the one who saw me not just as a queen, but as a person. Beside her, Jason spoke too. I didn't come here to change your world. I came here to help save it. And now, I'll fight beside your queen. Your real queen. Not just for her, but for all of you. The speech went viral across systems. Many cheered. Some still doubted, but everyone knew now the bond was more than a name. It was a stand. The Shadow faction didn't wait long. 2 days later, during a royal peace summit, a black warship descended over the city. Explosions rocked the palace gates. Smoke filled the skies. Armed enemies wearing dark armor began to flood the city's streets. It was a full invasion. Syria led her guards personally. She was not the kind of queen to hide. Jason grabbed a pulse rifle and followed her, fighting back to back. With her guards, the city turned into a battlefield at one point. Jason saw a squad of Shadow faction warriors corner a group of young alien students. Without thinking, he jumped in front, using his rifle and shield. Shots hit his armor. He shouted for them to run. One plasma bolt hit his leg, but he stayed standing, protecting the kids until Syria's royal guard arrived. Later, as he limped back into the main hall, Syria rushed to his side. You're bleeding, she said. You should see the other guys, Jason joked, though his voice shook. Syria placed her hand over his wound. Her eyes glowed softly, a light formed, and the bleeding stopped. You were stupid, yeah, he said, but it was worth it. By nightfall, the palace defenders had pushed back the first wave, but the Shadow faction's leader had not. Yet revealed himself, Syria knew the fight wasn't over. Jason, resting on a medical bench, looked at her. They're after you. They want to end the bond and take the throne? No, Syria said. They want to prove that fear and hate are stronger than unity. Jason stood, despite the pain. Then let's prove them wrong, she smiled faintly. One last time. One last time. They found the Shadow leader on the palace roof, a tall, armored alien with burning red eyes and long scars down his face. He stood surrounded by his elites. You could have stayed silent, he said to Syria. You could have ruled alone, she answered. A ruler who hides the truth has already fallen. The leader turned to Jason. You don't belong here. Jason stepped forward. Then why are you so scared of me? With a roar, the final battle began. Syria fought like fire. Jason fought like iron. Together, they moved with trust and rhythm, covering each other, saving each other, never giving up. At one point, Shadow leader struck Jason hard, knocking him to the ground. Syria screamed and launched herself forward, blades drawn. They clashed queen and traitor under the stars, and in the final moment, as the leader raised his blade to strike Syria, Jason threw a knife that hit his wrist. Syria didn't waste a second. With one swift move, she ended the fight. By morning, the war was over. The Shadow faction had fallen. The traitors were arrested. The city was quiet again. Inside the healing chamber, Jason lay in a recovery bed, his legs still sore but healing fast. Syria stood beside him. You're getting good at saving queens, she said softly. He grinned. I'm building a collection, she rolled her eyes, then sat beside him. I once joked that I'd marry the man who guessed my true name. Jason raised an eyebrow. That was a joke? Syria smiled. Mostly. She reached into her royal robe and took out a thin silver band. It glowed softly with ancient Yelveron script. Jason blinked. What's that? A symbol of unity? In my culture, we don't use rings. We use bindings. 2 souls wrapped together. Jason sat up, surprised. Are you asking? Syria nodded. I I'm not bound by old rules anymore, and I don't want to rule alone. Jason was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. Let's do it, together. She handed him one half of the band. He placed it on his arm, glowed the moment it touched his skin. Saria placed the other half on hers. A soft light formed between them. The bond became something new. Not just name, not just law, but love. Months later, peace returned to the Empire. The Queen still ruled. The human stood beside her not as a symbol, but as her partner. The throne was not shaken by their bond. It was strengthened by it, and across the stars. Aliens and humans looked at each other not with fear, but with hope, because once upon a time, a queen told a joke, and a human answered it with truth, with courage, and with heart.